going to talk about only 4 short things. They are pages, discussions, assignments, and quizzes. If you've been playing around in the course that we have created for you, you have already seen all 4 of these things. So you've seen them from a student point of view, and today we're going to talk about how to build them. If there is time, we also have on the list that we're going to talk about outcomes, but that might have to slide into the Q&A part, because even though there are 4 things, they're all very rich tools and they will take us a little bit of time to cover. So without further ado, let me go ahead and take you back over to our course, and we're going to start by talking about pages. Everything we're going to get to from a teacher point of view, you can navigate to on the left-hand side of the page. You'll notice that in your view of this course, all of these things are hidden. So you will only see pages that we create if we put them in modules. As a student, you won't be able to see these pages, but in your own classes, you will. So I'm going to navigate first to pages. And pages are where direct instruction is going to happen in Canvas. This is going to be where if you want to deliver information to your students, this is going to be your best tool for just giving them content. It is not an interactive tool for students, but it's a great, very versatile tool for you to deliver content. So I'm going to go first to view all pages. And this is going to show me all of the pages that I have in this course. And again, you'll notice that students will only see ones that are published and in a module, and I can tell they're published because they have that little check mark on them. To create a new page, I'm going to click plus page. And then I'm going to give this page a title. So I might call it reading passage, or whatever it is, the objective that I want to cover on this page. And then the main thing that I want to worry about here is the rich content editor. And we covered this in depth yesterday, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about the rich content editor. But this is where you can deliver that information to students. I want to remind you that it's great to put text in here. We love text, just plain straightforward text, because it's accessible. But you can also always upload media or record new media. Again, we saw this yesterday, but you can record your own face sharing information with students. And you can embed all kinds of content here as well. So all of that is some great stuff for creating content for students to read and learn. The other thing that I want to mention about this also is that you will, if you are putting a reading passage in here, I would say, depending on the age of your students, don't put too much text on a single page. You can put as many pages as you want into a module. So if you've got, let's say you're a language arts teacher, an English teacher, and you've got a short story you want your students to read, I would recommend breaking that into several pages and doing 300 to 500 words on each page. Again, depending on how much your students want to take in at a time, because it can, as you create content, you can make a big, really intimidating word wall. And so chunking that into pieces will help your students process it. You have a couple of options beyond when you put in your content. And a couple of the choices are who can edit this. And this is something I would say only on rare circumstances would you want this to be anyone. I think only teachers is going to be your go-to on this. Again, this is your main content delivery method, and so you want to keep that probably on only teachers. If you've noticed, when you log in, you do have a to-do list on the right-hand side of your dashboard, so you can snap this into their to-do list too. Assignments that have due dates on them will always be on the to-do list, but pages won't be on the to-do list because they don't have due dates. So this sort of gives a fictional due date by which time they should interact with it. They will still see it in their module if you don't click the add to student to do, but if you want to make sure that students are definitely going to see it, you can then tell them it has to be read by Friday at midnight. And then you also, I checked this by accident, the last option is allow in mastery paths. You are not going to check allow in mastery paths unless you have decided that you are going to work in mastery paths. Katie posted a video that I made in at a previous announcement about that. Mastery paths is super advanced, and if this is kind of your first time interacting with Canvas and you're still working on building your intro modules and getting comfortable in this area, I would not recommend looking at mastery paths just yet, but rather coming back to that in the future when you really feel like you've got a good handle on it. So again, leave allow and mastery paths unchecked. If you do update it at any point later on, like if I realize there's a typo or misinformation and I want to make sure students know about it and I go back and change it, I can click this, notify users that this content has changed. But it doesn't really matter if I do this when I'm first posting it. So that is how you make a page. When you're done, you can click save, or you can click save and publish. Clicking save will leave it in unpublished status. Clicking save and publish will leave it at a published status. But remember, if you have pages hidden, it doesn't matter if it's published or unpublished unless it is published in a module. That's when students will actually be able to see it. So I'm just going to go ahead and click save because this is not a very valuable page and I have no intention of putting it in a module right now. And once I click save, I have got, it loads up and it takes me back to, here's the view of my very great, beautiful page. And if I go back to view all pages, it'll just be listed among those other pages in alphabetical order. That one started with an R, so it's going to be pretty far down the list. That's 10 minutes on pages. Brian, do you have any questions?
I think we're doing all right. We had just at the very beginning, the adding pages. You just want to show once again where that button was. I think we had people who were multitasking and may have missed it.
Sure. So over here on the left, you're going to start by going to pages. And I know a couple people are still coming in. So I do want to mention that I want to point out again that this will be hidden from the student's point of view. So if you're looking at the Canvas Live course, you won't see this button. You'll only see it in a course where you're a teacher. You'll go to pages and then you'll click over here on the right, the blue plus page button, and that will start a brand new page for you.
All right, a couple other questions just came in, and since you're ready,
ready.
Can you set it so there are only certain teachers who are attached to the class can edit?
As
far as I know, no. It's if they have the teacher role, they're kind of going through.
Right. I would say around that, it's anybody with a teacher role can do it, but if you have somebody in your classroom who you want to have certain rights, you could make them another role in your class. There are various roles, including teacher, student, but there's also TA, and I don't even remember what all the roles are, but if you give them something where they have some rights, but not all the rights, I think that would prevent them from editing it as a not a full teacher role.
Right. I see there's a number of things. You mentioned Immersive Reader and where that pops up with pages?
Oh, yeah. I didn't mention it, but I'm really glad that you asked me to.
Oh, no, don't thank me.
I'm really glad
we have Sharon. Sharon. Okay.
So the great thing about, I'm looking for something where I know there's going to be a lot of content. Here's a perfect one. Okay, so here's the page. This is the vocabulary page that I made earlier this year. And all of the pages, I didn't have to do anything to set it up. If it is a page, Immersive Reader is going to be enabled on it. And so that's going to be true for you. It's going to be true for the students. You just have to know that it is going to be there. So if I click on that, it'll take me to that Immersive Reader view, and I can have things read to me. So yeah, that's something that I definitely think we want to spend time talking to our students about and making sure they know that tool is there for them.
Yeah. All right. I think anything that we missed, I apologize. We've got a lot going in the private text and also on the public text. So if we miss anything, I'm sure we can get to it in the Q&A at the end. So we can go forward.
Sounds good. All right, so that's pages. The next thing that I want to talk about is discussions. Again, this is something you will have already seen from the student point of view if you have been looking at our Canvas Live course that you are enrolled in. Discussions, again, everything I'm going to show you today, you're going to navigate to from over here on the left-hand side, the course navigation is what this is called. And then here are your discussions. Before I even create a new discussion, you're going to see a handful of things. You're going to see that I have a section for pinned discussions. Right now, we do have a bunch of discussions going on. So if there's one that I really want to take note of, I can choose to pin that discussion so it comes up here to the top. So I can do that by clicking on any discussions that I have down here by clicking these 3 dots. So if I really want to know, if I really want to make sure I'm giving all my attention to the user settings discussion, I can click these 3 dots and click pin. And now anytime I come to discussions, that's going to be right at the top of my list, so I can focus on that discussion. I also have I can look down here to see anything that I've closed for comments. So any discussion that you make will be here, whether students are allowed to interact with it or not. I want to point out a couple of the settings here as well. So if I just click this little gear, it lets me either, when you, let me show you this real quick. You can see how many replies have been posted and how many I've read. I'm slacking on this assignment. And when it knows that I've read it because I've clicked into there, and as soon as I scroll by, it thinks, oh, well, Biz has read this discussion now, so I'm going to mark it read. But if I'm afraid that I'm going to miss something, I can tell it, oh, I want you to manually mark. I want to be able to check and say, yes, I read that one. Yes, I read that one. And then you also have some student settings. So anything that you set up here is going to be true for any discussions you make. This will be the default settings for your discussions. You can change these settings on individual discussions, but it's good if you know the way you want things to go. So do you want students to be able to create discussion topics? That's a personal choice, right? It depends on if you trust your students. I think there's a lot of value in asking them to create discussion topics if they are going to create interesting and valuable conversations. But if you think they're just going to play around, then I would leave that unchecked. The other one is, do you want to allow them to edit and delete their own posts? As someone who has taken a number of online classes personally, I like having the option to edit my own posts. I find that when I post something, it's out there for my classmates to see. And if I catch a typo in it after I post it, that is embarrassing to me and I want to fix it. So that is something I would say leave it checked, but again, it is a personal choice for you. And then also, you can choose whether you want them to be allowed to attach files to a discussion. So if they were going to answer your question, and you could say, okay, and also I want you to submit some proof, so attach a drawing. My opinion is that you might as well leave it enabled. But I think if you're getting to the point where you're asking students to share various files and stuff, I think that that's maybe a little overwhelming for a discussion, and that's a lot of information for a discussion. So I would probably, with my middle school mindset, leave attaching files to discussions unchecked, except on special occasions. So those are a few of the settings. You can set your defaults there. Again, I got there by going to this little gear. And then, so to create a discussion, I'm going to click plus discussion. And it's going to look familiar. Everything we look at today is going to look at least somewhat familiar. It's going to start with a topic and a rich content editor, and then a few options below it. So I'm not going to actually post this discussion. So I'm making a note to myself that I want to delete this. And I recommend that's a fun way to learn how to do something. It's just to make a note to yourself, put the title as delete me, so you can just do whatever you want. And then later you go back and get rid of it. And you don't have to check and say, wait, what was this? Was this valuable or not? So here's where you would pose your question. And again, it's the full rich content editor. So you are not stuck to just putting your question in the form of words. You can put it in any format you want. Again, as long as it's accessible. So this is where you pose what they're going to talk about. And then you have below this a few more options. You're going to choose who you're going to post it to. In this particular case, I only have you. I can also, if I want people to know more about my discussion, I want to attach a file, I can attach a file, and this is going to be a very familiar look for you. If I just click choose file, it's going to pull up all of my files. And then here are your options that you're going to be able to set on all of them. Allow threaded replies is, here's what that means. When you post a question, your students can answer it, and that's it if you leave that unchecked. So here's my question, and here's all of your answers in a row. But if I allow threaded replies, I can pose a question, and then Brian can post an answer, and then Katie can answer Brian, or she can answer me. So a threaded reply allows it to become more of a conversation for students to respond to each other and not just to the initial prompt. Another option that I think is pretty useful, and I would consider my students, again, when I make this, you can require that students post before they see the replies that their peers have made. So if I post a discussion topic, it doesn't matter if I'm the first student to respond or the 80th student to respond to that discussion. I won't see anybody else's responses until I posted mine. That can be kind of good because you know you're getting your students' sort of original thoughts on this. They're not going to be swayed by what the other students have posted before them. Or it might be like, I don't know, if our students are a little nervous, maybe you want your students to be able to draw inspiration from their peers before replying. So that's an option that you have, and definitely something you should consider thoughtfully. I would leave enable podcast feed alone. And then you also have the option of deciding if it is going to be a graded assignment. As soon as I click graded, I get a whole bunch of options that open up below. I'm going to talk about all of these options when we move on to assignments. So for now, I'm going to leave this discussion ungraded. If I leave it ungraded, you notice I can still add it to the to-do the same way I could with pages, and I can allow students to like. Well, actually, I can allow a variety of people to like. If I just click allow liking, anybody can like anything. Nobody can dislike anything. So I see this as a general positive. But if you're like, I still feel like students would find a way to make that uncomfortable place, you can choose to say only anybody with grading power within the course can like it. And that way you can like your students' posts, but other students can't like other students' posts. And if you choose to sort it by likes, the post with the most likes will come up to the top. I would not probably choose to do that. And then you can also choose to make it a group discussion. I'm not going to dive into that right now because groups are something we're going to get into on Friday. So I just want to point out that this option is here, and we'll hold off on talking about groups until then. And you can also decide, I want this to be available right now, and I want it to stop being available next Friday. So you can set the amount of time that students have to respond to it before it closes for comments. When you're done, again, you can choose between save or save and publish. And that is the story of discussions. Brian, what questions do you have?
I think we are good. I'm looking through to see everything, but we went over discussions. You showed right at the end. I know right at the beginning, people were asking, are discussions something you turn on and off? And I think you just covered that. So
yeah, so this is probably the easiest way to do that.
Yeah.
You could also choose to publish and unpublish it. But I like the idea of just being like, here's the dates that I want them to talk in, and then never again. And I like also being able to close it to comments, because then you don't have to moderate it or give it too much attention like that. Oh, I do want to mention about moderating real quickly, because this was a question that I've been asked a lot along the way. There is no actual option to moderate this. When students post, it is posted. So that's another reason that you might consider using this users must post before CA replies, because that gives you a chance to see things before they're publicly viewable by anyone. So unfortunately though, right now Canvas doesn't have a great moderation tool where a student can post and let you look at it before it gets publicly posted.
Okay. When responding in discussions, you showed students get the rich content editor so they can do voice, they can add a couple of other things, so they have a number of options for adding. Question just came up a couple of times. Is there a talk to text for students? I think maybe this will be for the devices like iPads, tablets, and we say that it would use the native technology that's in the device.
Yeah, Canvas doesn't have that
Yeah,
built in. That's a device specific thing.
yeah.
But if you do want your students to speak their voices, then they do have the ability to upload or record media here. I think if you have a question where you're asking them to speak on a camera, I think you might just want to go ahead and just do Flipgrid instead of a discussion anyway. And there's two reasons. Number one, you can moderate Flipgrid. And number two, Flipgrid has some automatic closed captioning. It's not perfect, but it's a good starting place. And it gives the students a lot of options with how they choose to express themselves. So they can be more creative within a Flipgrid than they can by uploading a video here to discussions.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're good to go. Just the last thing that came up, and we already talked about this, is moderation of posts when they're inappropriate. That'll be more of a setting, we do kind of setting the classroom expectations, digital citizenship, and then also teachers kind of follow the school guidelines, and also just be aware of what's being posted, set your notifications, and kind of look to see what's going on with students.
Sure. Yeah. If you you have in your own notification settings the ability to be notified anytime a new post comes through. That means though that you'll get a notification at 8 p.m. if that's when a student is doing it. I think you're right though, Brian. I think you can't moderate an in-class discussion. You know what I mean? You can't you can't let a kid speak to you before they speak to the class. So just sort of treating it as that, as a class discussion, knowing that you might have to counsel the student afterward if they say something inappropriate, that you'd have to have meaningful discussions beforehand and afterward is going to be your best bet, because it mimics a real life discussion in that way.
We're good when you are.
All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is assignments. Again, over here on the course navigation, I'm going to go to assignments. And I'm just going to go ahead and leave that because I don't need to save that discussion. And here again, I've got a list of all of the assignments that I have created. I do want to point out that, nope, I don't. I'm going to point that out tomorrow. So pretend I didn't say any words at all. I'm going to click plus assignment here to create a new assignment. And just like everything I said that we talked about today is going to be the same. Navigate on the left, click plus on the right. And so assignments, I think, are really amazing within Canvas because there are so many options of the types of things that you can do. So once again, this is a general delete me assignment. So I can do a lot of things here. I can ask a straightforward question. Maybe I don't want this to be a discussion. I just want my students to respond to something that they have read. But I can put a lot of content here. I can put a lot of stuff in the rich content editor. One thing that I've heard of teachers doing, and I think this is pretty interesting, is that they are avoiding using pages almost completely. And they're putting anything that they want to put in a page into the rich content editor in an assignment. And then at the end of, let's say this is a reading passage. At the end of that reading passage, there's a quick check-in. So you're going to use this for anything you want them to read or know or do in relationship to the assignment. So this is information and directions go in the rich content editor. And that can be as robust or straightforward as you want it to be. You'll assign it a number of points. So let's go ahead and say, we're going to give it 100 points. You would choose the correct assignment group. And then you would choose how to display the grade. And again, this is going to be different depending on the grade level that you teach. You can also choose to mark it complete or incomplete is a choice you have. I'm going to go ahead and go with percentage. And now I'm going to decide I can have students do this and not have it calculate in their final grade. So if I have just some informational assignment that I want to give them, I can check that off. And then here's what makes assignments so amazing is this submission type here. So this drop down, and this is where you're going to really be thinking about the types of assignments you give. There are 4 types of assignments. The first one is no submission. So if you choose no submission, that is of course not going to ask students to turn anything in. I think no submission would be useful if you were, let's say in a hybrid model or an in-person model where you're still using Canvas, if you were having students give a speech or a performance, there's no actual submission. No one will ever collect anything. But this would be a good way to put that kind of assignment in there. Similarly, if you were using this in a hybrid or in-person model, you might ask for an assignment on paper. And again, then you could just do that. If you choose either of these things, you're going to have very limited options beyond that because Canvas isn't expecting students to do anything really with this assignment. So we're going to focus on online and external tool. So I'm going to choose online. And as soon as I do that, it's going to say, okay, we know you want your student to give you something that they've created with their computer. So what do you want it to be? You can choose as many of these as you want. So if I choose text entry, that means my student is going to have the rich content editor and they're going to be able to respond to me with just a block of text that they create as they are sitting there in front of their computer, phone or screen or whatever it is. I can choose to let them give me a website URL. So maybe if they created something somewhere else on another website and they wanted to share that website with me, I could have them do that. Maybe they recorded their own YouTube video and they could send me the link to that. I can allow students to give me media recordings, which gives them access to the studio, which again, we will talk more about later. And I can choose to give them a file upload. So again, if you're asking students to write something, I would say probably choose text entry or file upload. So this gives them the option of writing directly in Canvas. In the rich content editor, I would almost always give them that choice if you can, because that's right there. They never have to leave Canvas. They're right in your environment. So I would give them this option as often as possible. And then also the file uploads option is if they maybe like wrote it first in Word and then saved it and wanted to upload it to you. If you want to get really specific, you can say you can upload a file, but I only want specifically a doc, like a document or a PowerPoint. I'm going to say that that's going to make your life and their life harder. So I probably recommend you stay away from restricting the upload file types. You also have the other one that I almost forgot, even though it is literally the best thing about Canvas, in my humble opinion, is the submission type external tool. If I choose external tool, this is going to be what lets me bring in all of those other apps that I have had a chance to integrate. And we will talk more about that tomorrow too. But any app that is connected to Canvas for me or by my school or whatever, is going to, if it allows me to create that kind of assignment, I can do that here. So rather than talk about it, let's be about it. So after I choose external tool, the next step is always going to be to click find. And if I click find, here are a variety of assignments that I can create. Now, again, what I see in front of me might be different from what you see in front of you. For example, my school has Nearpod, so I can create a Nearpod assignment here, which I really like, but we don't have Nearpod integrated on this particular course. One that everybody will have that I think you will really love is the Office 365 cloud assignment. And what this is going to do, and I'm going to show you this as an example right now, is it's going to take your, it's going to look at your OneDrive, and if you've got something there that's formatted for students to interact with it, it will make a copy for each of them and let them edit that copy and turn it in. I'll show you what that looks like. So if I click on Office 365 cloud assignment, it's going to take me to, right away, it's going to take me to my OneDrive. And it's going to take me to my OneDrive sorted in alphabetical order, and they can't resort it. So what my recommendation is or what I've done at least for myself, is I have a folder of things that I want to use, that I know that I'm going to use assignments in Canvas. I called them Canvas examples, but more importantly, I called them underscore Canvas examples, and that pushed them all the way to the top of my folder, so that so as soon as I open Canvas, the external tool, it's always going to have this at the top for me. Otherwise, I'd have to go hunting for it. So I'm going to choose that folder. And then I have all of the things that I could use as an assignment in Canvas here. I'm going to show you this Venn diagram, and I actually have this assigned in the classroom already. So when we publish the optional homework for tomorrow, you can see what this looks like from the student's point of view. So I'm going to check that off and click Attach File. And you might have noticed that with checkboxes, you can only check one box. Usually when you see checkboxes, you can check several, but in this case, you'll choose just one file. It takes a second to process that, and it takes you back to this screen, and you're just gonna click Select. And you won't notice that anything has happened, but if you look carefully, you'll see that this link has changed. You don't have to do anything with the link, but that's just how I know for sure that everything I did is working, because I can see that Office 365 right there. So those are the submission types. I can choose if I want my students to submit once or to submit multiple times. I'm going to let my students have as many attempts as they want to achieve mastery. And then again, I can choose who I'm going to assign this to. If I want to assign it to a specific student, or if I want to assign it to everyone, which is often going to be what you're going to do, or if you have groups there. I can also set a due date. And much like with the discussion, I can say, well, I want it to be this due date, but I'm going to only have it available starting on Friday, and students won't be able to access it beyond the next Friday, but I'm still going to say it's due on Tuesday. So you can give it some options in there. So that's how you set it up. And now let me show you exactly what it looks like, because that's the cool part. If I click Save, what it's now doing is it's going to show me the assignment. Here's my information and directions. And this part that's loading up, this is kind of how the students are going to view it as well. It's going to, and it is a little slow because it's pulling a lot of information. It's pulling up a copy of this, and I've got a copy of this, and all of my students will also have a copy of this. I liked the PowerPoint option because you can be a little more flexible with what you put into it. In the past, I've always played around with this with Word documents. So this is a great way to handle a worksheet or something where you want them to be filling in specific areas. And they will see this the same way you do. The title, the information, and then they'll see this little box, and they can just click on Edit Presentation, and they can choose to edit in PowerPoint, or what I would strongly recommend that you train them to do is to edit in the browser. And that will, again, it leaves them right here in Canvas, and it gives them all of those editing tools. And as soon as now it's hard for me to show you because this is the teacher view. The difference between your view and their view is that as they enter text or here, as soon as they're done, or even as soon as they enter it, they have the option to click Submit up here. And as soon as they click Submit, you can see their completed work. If you leave it as unlimited attempts, they can submit and then come back to it later and add on to it. So if you are having students do a reading log or tracking their data for something, this would be a great way to use a Word document and have them fill out one day at a time. And just every time they click Submit, you'll get the updated version each day or each week, or however often you ask them to return to this assignment. So I think assignments is a really powerful tool. You can do a lot with it, and you are really only limited by your creativity. I'm going to go back here real quick because I'm guessing there are going to be some questions, and I think it'll be easier to be in the editing view. So Brian, what you got for me?
Actually, I think you have people stunned and really enjoying this. We got a lot of positive feedback. One that came earlier, and I didn't know this myself, so I wanted to ask you, if an assignment is tagged with the do not count as in final grade, how are students notified, if at all, about that?
You know, it's funny, when I said that, I was like, I don't know if students can tell if it's toward the grade or not. And I had the same question for myself today. So we'll figure that out for you and let you know, because I also want to know that. I think that's good information to have.
Yeah, we got some
Huh.
things coming in just now. The asks about can you have an assignment pop up in a new tab? And the answer is yes. I don't
Hmm.
know what best practice is for that. I've been told a couple of different things. Biz, do you want to weigh in on best practice for that?
Yeah. So when we are thinking in terms of accessibility, loading in the same tab is what is recommended. And here you're thinking about someone who is navigating the screen using just their voice. It's much easier for them to go back than to close out a tab. So for accessibility reasons, we recommend keeping things in the same tab. You can yeah. So that's my recommendation. As a user, as an end user, I actually prefer a second tab, but for accessibility reasons, we have to recommend staying in the same tab.
Yeah. Um, I think I'm trying to catch to see what was already caught with the new answers or questions. So the accessibility issue, if you're going to post anything, you want to make sure it's accessible in its native environment. So if you're creating something in Microsoft, make sure it's accessible in Microsoft. If you're creating something in Canvas, make sure to check the accessibility checker that's at the bottom of the rich content editor, or at least at the bottom of the box right there, and then you can make sure that's going.
Yeah,
Um,
that's really important. And I will mention that if you are using a Microsoft tool, they do have an accessibility checker built in for you there. So build it in your Microsoft product first and check the accessibility before you add it as an external tool. Yeah.
yeah. Question, desktop app or online for creating to allow for submission. You can do either, but it does have to be it'll be saved and then submitted in um, there's a lot of questions. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up here. Make a worksheet fillable. We can go through. So the anything that is shared from your Office 365 or Google will be fillable by the students if you're using it as an external tool. So it's just part of the magic that happens when we're using Canvas. Um, there is no immersive reader. That is right when we're going through in Canvas, but the immersive reader would be um, in the computer version, the online version of it in Microsoft, but not on the, is that what it was? Not on the device?
Yeah, so if
Or
they're
is it?
looking at an assignment that's made in Word Online, Word Online has the immersive reader. But I don't think a published assignment has immersive reader for it. I know quizzes don't.
Right.
Let me check that real quick. Again, any other questions while I'm pulling that up?
Um, I think we're getting, no, PDFs are not fillable unless the student has the software for it themselves. And yeah, I think we do want to continue with this, so we can stay for Q&A and answer questions because we're starting to get into specifics and kind of do some work and stuff like that. But great questions that keep coming up. You can tell we're all getting to the point where we're starting to know what we don't know.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so the last tool that we're going to talk about today is quizzes. And again, starting over here on the left, we'll go to quizzes, and then I'll go over here to the right and click plus quiz. I want to talk about quizzes because I think this is a question we are asked all the time. Prince William County is purchasing Mastery Connect. We don't have access to that yet, but I do know they want summative assessments to be going through Mastery Connect. However, you will still have access to quizzes. And I think this is going to be a great tool for like an exit ticket or a quick check or something like that. So you may not give a unit test in quizzes. I don't even think quizzes is the best for a unit test, but it is great for a check-in. The first time you click plus quiz, it's going to ask you to choose. Do you want classic quizzes or new quizzes? Another thing that people have heard is that quizzes are going away. Quizzes are not going away, but classic quizzes are going to be phased out by the end of the school year. So if you've not started in quizzes yet, I'm going to strongly encourage you to ignore classic quizzes and never look at it and only go with new quizzes. You can check this box that says, remember my choice for this course, and then you won't even have to worry about it. If you have created something in classic quizzes, Canvas says that they are going to introduce a tool that will allow you to migrate old quizzes over into new quizzes. So if you've already invested time there, it will not be time that is lost. Anything you have previously made will still be available to students to take this year, and you will have time to transfer it over using whatever tools Canvas provides. They have not yet provided those tools, so I can't tell you about them, but that's what they say they're going to do. So again, if you're new to quizzes, choose new quizzes, remember your choice, submit it, and move along. So this looks familiar, right? You're going to start with an assignment name, and then you are going to give it some points, and you're going to display your grade type, and then you can choose if it goes with the final grade or not. And then here's the thing that throws people off. The submission type says external tool, but you'll notice that I can't do anything about that. That is because Canvas actually has their quiz built in as an external tool. So you're going to leave this part completely alone. A quiz is an external tool, and you don't have to worry about it because you're going to go ahead and build it. You can choose the number of times, well, not the number, but whether or not you want to limit students' attempts, right? So if I say limited, I can say you only get 3 choices. We want to give our students as much opportunity to show mastery as possible. So I'm going to allow unlimited attempts on this assignment. And again, just like before, I can choose who I want to assign it to and when it's going to be due and available. So all of this is just kind of the initial setup that you want to do. And you should only spend, once you get comfortable with this, you'll fly through this in like 30 seconds. And then you're going to get into actually building the quiz. So I'm going to click save, and this is going to take me to the quiz builder tool. Because it's an external tool, it's going to look a little different from what you're used to in Canvas, but not so different that you will be confused. So you'll notice everything's kind of different. I don't have my course settings over here on the left, but it's still pretty familiar. So right now I'm in the build tab, and in the build tab, this is where I'm going to create my types of questions. I can click add instructions, and it brings up a text editor that is very similar to the rich content editor, but it is not exactly the same. For example, I cannot directly record media into this, and I learned this one yesterday, or maybe this week. If I recorded media somewhere else, I can add it, but I can't just record media into here. So that's just a fun fact to be aware of. If you're ever planning on giving a quiz that was starting with video directions, you would have to pre-record them. But otherwise, any directions would go here. These are directions for the whole assessment. So, you know, I don't have to do a ton with it. And then you've got this little plus button, and this button is going to be where you add each question. So when I click the plus, it's going to bring up all these different types of questions that I have. I'm going to highlight just a few of them for you, a few of my favorite types and the more confusing types. So the first one I'm going to show you is multiple choice, because we have all created multiple choice questions in our life. So I'm going to click multiple choice, and then I can give it a question title. The question title is useful because you can save these questions and reuse them later. You don't even have to use the whole quiz again. You can just pull this question back in. So maybe I gave a quick check on Friday of week 1 and another one on Friday of week 2, and then on Friday of week 3, I want to pull questions from previous assessments. So I would suggest a very descriptive name for your question, and maybe even including the objective that you are testing here. And then your question stem is going to go here. Who is your favorite presenter? And then you'll see the radio buttons. I just pointed with my finger. You'll see the radio buttons mark the correct answer or any of the incorrect answers. And now I have to give some distractors. Brian, Katie, Janelle. But there are so many instructors, and I want to list them all as wrong answers. So if I want to, I can add another one. Man, Nisha is the worst. Or I can say, you know what, today there's only 2 presenters you have to choose from today. If I just click that trash can, I can limit down even just to 2 answers. And I think that would be helpful for some of our students who can be overwhelmed by too many answer choices. So obviously we mark the correct answer. If I wanted to change that, I could, but I would never change that. I can also, and this is one of my very favorite things about it, as my students take the quiz, I can give them instant feedback based on their answer. So if a student chose biz, I can be like, you're a genius. And now as soon as they answer the question with biz, they'll get that feedback right away. They don't even have to finish the quiz. They just have to answer their question. And if they chose Brian, I'd be like, good try, but no, sorry. So I don't have to do that. I don't have to give feedback, but I think it's really going to be valuable for our students, especially for any asynchronous learning attempts, to give them that instant information. You have a few options on every single question, including, do you want to show an on-screen calculator? You can have a calculator just appear. You can choose between a basic for function or a scientific calculator. It is not a Desmos calculator. So that is something that I know you will want to know. So that's an option though for math teachers if you want to give them a non-Desmos calculator. You can also vary points by answer. So maybe I'm going to give you 2 total points for choosing biz, and I'll give you partial credit if you chose Brian. I don't want you to have 0 credit. So if you think there's a reason to give somebody half credit for an answer, you can choose that option. And I always recommend shuffling the choices unless there's a good reason not to. I'm going to skip align to outcomes for now, but this right here is where you would add it to a question bank. So you could add a new item bank and save that question for later use. If you don't want to save individual questions, you certainly don't have to. The quizzes will always be there for you to use and reuse as much as you want to. At the end, I can also give feedback. I can say this particular question is worth 10 points out of 100 or 8 or 1 or whatever. And I can say, I can give feedback based on the same thing I did before, for a correct answer, for an incorrect answer, or if I just want to give some feedback overall instead of doing those specific ones, I can then give end of question feedback right here under general feedback. Again, all of those are options. None of those are things you have to do, but I think that's what makes this tool so great. So I've got a multiple choice question. Another one that I want to show you is the stimulus down here, because I think this is also a really great one. It's one I get a lot of questions about. If you click plus stimulus, you'll notice that now adds something over just onto the right-hand side of my screen. This is where you would use a reading passage or a diagram that you wanted to apply to multiple questions. So if I wanted my students to read a passage and then answer 3 questions about that passage, I would put that passage here as a stimulus, give it a title, instructions, and then here's the reading passage. I can even cite my sources here. But then I can add questions to this stimulus of any of those types that we talked about. So I think that one's a really cool tool too. I wanna show you so many more things. So I'm gonna actually skip over showing you more questions right now because I want to show you some of the other features of the quiz and still have time for questions. So speeding ahead, you also have quiz settings, and you'll definitely want to check this one out before you publish a quiz for students to use. The quiz settings allow you to shuffle the questions or not. Again, you can shuffle all the answers if you forgot to check that on an individual question. You can tell your students whether or not you're going to allow students to look at one question at a time or not. And this is where if you're trying to simulate like a CAT test type of environment, you can allow them to go back or not. So if you're giving feedback and telling them if they were right or wrong at the end of every question, maybe you would say, okay, well, I want to see how you did on this, so I'm not going to let you go back. You're going to see one question at a time. You're going to get instant feedback on it. And I'm going to see your final score before you can go back to it. You can require them to put in a code to take the test. So the test will be locked until you give them essentially a password. You can choose to put a time limit on the assessment. You can say you only have 30 minutes to take this. And I'm going to show you how you can make that individual to specific students too. We're going to ignore filter IP addresses because that is far too complicated in our current environment. You can choose to allow a calculator on the entire time or not. You can choose to allow multiple attempts. And if you do, which score are we going to keep? The average score, the latest score, or the highest score? And you can choose, again, the number of attempts. And I also like that you can say, all right, you can take it as many times as you want, but I'm going to make you do X, Y, and Z. You have to wait 24 hours before you take it a second time. And then you can choose exactly how the students will be able to see their results. And there's a lot of options there for doing that. Under reports is where you'll be able to see detailed statistics. I can't show you anything here because nobody's taken my quiz yet, but if you had, I could show you an analysis of how you did on the quiz overall, or how you did on the quiz on an item by item. I can look at the whole class, I can look at individuals, and I can also look at outcomes analysis, and this will show me how you did based on objectives that I tied to it. You won't see this unless you start messing with outcomes, and we'll talk about that if we can. We still have a lot of questions around outcomes anyway. And the last thing, and this is one of my very favorite features about the quiz, is this moderate section. The moderate section allows me to look up a particular student. It allows me to see how they're doing on this, but more importantly, it gives me the chance to look at their accommodations. So let's say that Tim has, maybe I've limited this to 3 attempts for everyone, but I think Tim probably needs 5 attempts. And that's just part of his IEP, is that he's going to get additional attempts. Or maybe, or maybe he is a student who needs additional time. So if I'm giving the rest of the class 30 minutes to take this test, maybe Tim can have an extra 30 minutes, or maybe Tim can just have unlimited time. And one thing that's great about this, once I've set this up for Tim, he's got this accommodation listed for him, and I don't have to do it again. If I give him this accommodation in my course, he will have it in my course. He won't have it in all of his courses. So if he has it in my language arts class, he won't have it in Brian's social studies class. But Brian can then go ahead and do it. And that makes sense because he might have different accommodations based on the subject anyway. But I think you're going to find this tool is going to be really helpful for just making sure that you are meeting all of your students' needs. When you hit return, it'll create the entire quiz for you, and students will be able to interact with it. Questions?
All right. So we're going to go through a couple. The settings, that got a good one. So when we're looking at settings and we start making things perfect right there, shuffle questions, shuffle answers. Does that take precedence over if you're doing it at the individual like inside the individual question? Or do you know which one, if you turn off, do you have to change it in the question as well if you want specific ones?
I think if you want specific ones to be shuffled and others to be unshuffled, you leave shuffle off here and you make it individual.
Yeah. Okay. And also, when you're looking at, just so we can have some clarification, the stimulus would be for like a bank of questions. So if you had the periodic table and then you could add questions kind of with that stimulus. So if you're looking to put an image or a sound or a video or whatever you're putting, and you want multiple questions to access it, that's when you use the stimulus. But you could also do the same thing for individual questions.
Right, yeah, so each question could have its individual stimulus, but again, I say reading passage because that's how I see it will be used the most often. And so what you'll see here is the stimulus is over here on the left, and as I click attach question, I can add as many as I want, and those will appear side by side on a laptop. On a phone, it's still gonna keep the stimulus above the questions, so I wouldn't have a stimulus and then add 20 questions to that if I thought my students would be on a tablet or a phone or something, because I think that would be a little bit challenging for them to read down to question number 20 and scroll all the way back up to the stimulus to check it again.
Yeah, the question came up about a read aloud, and I think we've all landed on, if you're doing a read aloud in this particular setting, you would want to use just your voice recordings for that, and so do that in the rich content editor with recording.
Yeah, this does not have Immersive Reader, unfortunately. I would love to see Immersive Reader be attached to this quiz tool. I hope we'll move in that direction, but we're not there yet. So yeah, you would need to, if you needed to read aloud, you'd want to include your voice on that. And if you wanted some of your students to have a read aloud, what I'd recommend is creating the test without the read aloud first. And then you can go back to your list of quizzes and you can duplicate that quiz. And then you can add your voice onto it. And then you can assign to specific students.
Yeah, we have a lot of love for the different accommodations that you could offer in quizzes. Unfortunately, this is the only place in Canvas that has that. So
Yeah, it's an
yeah,
external tool. That's why it's a
yeah,
little different.
yeah. All right, we've got a lot of questions I'm trying to catch up with, and we're running short on time. Biz, what do we
Yeah.
have left? I think we'll go through, then we'll get to Q&A.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I think if you want to go ahead and give them the link now for attendance.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did already? Awesome. Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Please, everybody, if you haven't, please make sure you fill that out. We cannot mark you attended if you do not carefully and accurately fill out that form. So take a look at the chat. If you've been ignoring it now, make sure you get that attendance link. And we can go ahead and tell you everything I possibly can if I know it. So we are officially in Q&A time. What you got?
Officially Q&A time. All right, awesome. Okay, I think we're good. So, all right, if you want to open up your mic and we'll just go through, how did we do that last time? Raise your hand. There's a little raise your hand icon. And then if you do that, then we'll call on you to open up your mic and go ahead and ask questions. I think this has been a tremendous session, Biz, so far. Thank you so much for doing such a great job with this and for all the great questions out there. So we're going to stay for a while here and see if we can answer all the questions. So just pop up that raise your hand and then we'll kind of go through.
All right, Brian,
yeah, I got it. I see
okay.
Here, Missy Alexander, I'm going to hit the ask to unmute and go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, I am a high school English teacher, and we do daily writing. We call it a day book, but you know, everyone knows it's just like the regular daily journal. Mm-hmm. And you know, normally, of course, I have it up on the board, on our smart board. You know, on the PowerPoint slide. You know, the daily journal. The kids know as soon as they walk in, they start to write. And then usually we might have a grammar exercise after that. And that's like our first 20 minutes or so, getting ourselves all warmed up, right? How exactly can I do that? And I actually check that journal, you know, and give comments and tell the kids how they're doing with their writing. I teach juniors, so I always do things that are, you know, over the months in preparation for the essay that they're writing. You know, they have to write for the writing SOL. How exactly will I mean, of course, I know I use a discussion board. You know, I did it on Google Classroom. And when I taught in Manassas Park for a year, I used a discussion board on Canvas, you know, as well. But I use it for different purposes, you know, to ask a question, you know, a discussion question or something about what we're reading, you know, and everyone can see that. I want an option where, you know, everyone can't see what the kids are writing because I want them to be able to, you know, feel comfortable and not be embarrassed if their writing isn't strong, you know, so on and so forth. So, is there any kind of option?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I like that. The thing I can think of that would be closest to a journal where they'd be going back to the same document is if you created an assignment and you did it as an external tool with, you're at a Google school?
Yes.
You could do a Google tool or an Office 365. So you could do Word or you could do a Google Doc. And even if you just assigned them a blank document or maybe at the top of it, it said like, this is your journal. As long as you did not give that, as long as you gave them unlimited attempts to it, they could come back to that same assignment every single day and add on to it. And every time they click submit, you'll be able to see it. And then we'll show you tomorrow what that will look like when students have done that and how you can go right into what they've submitted and give them feedback. You can write on it. You can annotate their document, or you can just give feedback in text on the side. So I think just giving them a blank document that they keep coming back to would be great.
Okay,
Or
cool.
you could maybe change out the document every day or once a month. But if you did it just one document, and they're like, I know I always have to go to this. This is my day book right here. Every day I start by going to that day book and typing and clicking done. I think an
And then
assignment
have
would
the
be a
one
great option.
assignment under like a writing module or something. They'd know to go under there.
Yeah, like if
That,
you
or
had,
okay.
yeah, write a writing module at the very top, and you just always left that module open for them to come back to.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Good morning.
Here, we're going to go with Chris. So, Chris, you got a question for us?
Yeah, real quick, I asked it in the chat before about the discussions, and like when a student writes something that is inappropriate in the discussion, which will happen, no matter what you say, won't. We keep, your answer was, we have to tell them about it beforehand. Don't do it. It's going to happen.
Right.
What do we do as teachers when the students do it?
So
There
what would, yeah, it's going to be,
this question.
yeah, there's not a perfect answer because it's just not a perfect situation. And we do have, it's a site-based decision, kind of how you handle. We have rules in place. I would talk to your administrators what their expectations are. But again, my belief in Biz, I want you to chime in afterwards. But of course, it's always going to be about setting kind of the expectations and do more of a prevention. So you can set up your individual notifications for posting and have it on your computer, have it on your phone, and so you can be more up to date if you feel this is going to be a concern at certain points. But yeah, it's just like any other expected situations that happen that aren't appropriate in class.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but when someone does it, do we just take down the discussion? Like,
You can delete an individual post as soon as you see it.
that's what I'm asking. Like
Yes.
that, I guess you never said, yes, you can delete it.
Sorry, I didn't hear that question.
Oh,
Yes,
no,
you have
yeah.
the ability to take down that post immediately. It doesn't have
Oh,
to stay.
then that
Yeah.
was never, I don't think that was ever made clear.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's not just like, well, we all have to look at this mess now.
That's what I thought you guys were saying. Like, hey, sorry, like the Canvas hasn't set up a
No.
moderator.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
When
Yeah.
I say you can't moderate, I mean you can't see it before it's available.
Yeah.
But as soon as you see it, you can take care of it.
Okay, then that's all I need
Yeah.
to know.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
Yeah,
you're right. Kids are going to abuse it. I agree with you. I think we do everything we can to prepare for that. But yeah, you can nuclear
Well,
option immediately.
Then that's all I need to know. Thank you.
All right, cool. Brickley, go ahead, and you're up next.
Hey, so when you were first going over the quizzes, you had shown the multiple choice one, but then you alluded to that there were ones that you weren't so happy with, the different types. Can you
Oh
expand?
yeah. Yeah, let me, here my delete me. So there, I'll go through all of them really briefly. And if you look at our document from today, there are links to like descriptions of all of them. So ones that I think are great are categorization, which would be like if you had numbers and you wanted to say if they were odd or even, is great. A file upload, I feel like I would put, if I wanted a kid to give me a file, I would make that an assignment, not a quiz. A formula is a tough one because that means their answer is a formula, not that you are providing a formula. So that there is a possibility that you might want to use that, but this is a messy one. The other ones that are interesting, I'm going to show you fill in the blank since you asked about this is the other one I had planned to share. People have had a hard time figuring this one out. I actually really like it, but here's how it works, just because I think this statement, this type of question has confused a lot of people. So if I were like, this is Canvas, it is fun. I can then choose any word to make fill in the blank. So if I want to give you an option, I highlight the word I want, and then like the directions say, I'll hit enter. And now Canvas is gonna say this is blank. The way that this question type has been confusing for people is that it defaults to giving open entry. So for example, if I were to give you this quiz just right now and you typed in lowercase CANVAS or all capital Canvas, it would be marked wrong because it's not close. Like, it has to be exact. And you can change this around. Like, you can say close enough or exact match, or you can list all of the things that you think are right. But if a kid was going to spell it CANVIS and you didn't think of that, or that Canvas didn't think that was close enough, they would get it wrong. So what I recommend if you want to do a fill in the blank type of question is to use a drop down or a word bank. My favorite is the drop down. And then essentially it almost becomes multiple choice on each word that is being filled in the blank. A word bank wouldn't be a drop down, it would just be words underneath. And I believe if you have multiple words in a sentence, you would, if you had a word bank, you'd get multiple word banks. So that's why I like the drop down menu as the option. I think it's a pretty cool tool, but you just kind of have to play with it to make sure it's not going to be more work than it has to be. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool.
Okay. We don't have any other hands raised at this point, but we do have over 100 people still on, maybe just kind of watching to see what we do next or what questions come next.
What are you gonna do next?
There was a question I just saw. I'm not sure if I understood it. It came from 920838. To get to insert content, do I need items in the item bank? Does that question, do you know where that's coming from?
Insert content?
Yeah. Insert content is the plus, and you're going through and you've created the new quiz, started that up, and then you have options to do that.
I mean, the plus button is always going to be there in blue. If you have questions in the bank, they'll be here in this little pig bank thing.
I love it.
So if you have saved them, which I have not. Hotspot is fun. I like Hotspot a lot.
Is that the drag and drop?
I looked at the question. Sorry. Hotspot is, oh man, I've got too much going on. Okay, I'm going to add it down here so I don't lose it. Hotspot gives you a picture. It lets you upload a picture, and then your students can point to a spot on the picture that is the answer. So, for example, it's my fault because I haven't finished this one. Sorry, let me just delete this whole question. I think that's what's throwing me off. Okay. Yeah, here you go. So you can drop an image here, and then I wonder what images I have. Just okay. You wouldn't use this one. But any image at all. I use this as a practice quiz with like an example of like different types of insects and ask students to identify like a specific kind. So you choose the hotspot shape. So I could say, like, if I wanted students to identify the section of where you are comparing, I could circle, that's not a very, I would try to do a better job than this. But then this is now the correct answer. And if they click, when they see this quiz question, if they click in the blue, they get correct points for clicking in that section that is the correct section. So that's how that works. Does that make sense?
It did to me, and I know the good Miss Ray is already thinking of 100 different ways she could use this and is very excited.
Cool.
We have Jasmine up next, who is got a question for us.
Yes, I'm assuming that most people did not. Well, first of all, good morning. But I'm assuming most people didn't raise their hands because, like me, I didn't know where that button was.
Oh.
But now that I've found it, my question is, when you select unlimited in quizzes or assignments or unlimited attempts, is that good only through the end date of the assignment?
Yes.
Yeah. After it's over, they won't be able to access it anymore.
Okay, so for something like a journal, then you need to make it accessible that end date can't. So how would that work if you have something like that journal? Then can you change the end date periodically?
You don't have to have an end date.
I'm sorry.
You don't have to have an end date. You can just leave that part blank.
Okay.
Let me, I can show you. There's the option to start and end an assignment, but if you look at, oh, sorry, I should have chosen literally anything else. If you look at, I want to get out of quizzes.
Well, I understand not having the end date, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking more in terms of encouraging kids to finish work at a certain time.
I
So
understand.
that they're not putting everything off until the end of the semester, so to speak, to do the work.
Yeah.
So can you go back in and change those end dates if necessary?
Yes, you definitely can do that.
This is why they're able to.
I think that answers my question. Thank you.
All right, awesome. I know we said Melanie, but first we got another co-host of ours, Janelle, who is ready to add to our words of wisdom. But then we will get to Melanie.
I just wanted to hop in really quick because throughout the whole session today, there's been a lot of people who want to know how to add a discussion or a page or something to an actual module. So I just want to know if you could quickly preview that. I put resource documents in the chat for them. You could probably do it pretty quick, right?
Absolutely. So if I go over to modules here in my course navigation, every module has this little plus button at the top of it. And so if I click this plus button, I can choose what I want to add. So if I have created an assignment, a quiz, a page, or a discussion, any of those things. So if I look for any page that I made, here's all of the pages that I can put in here. And we've got really a lot of pages in here. So that's one way to do it. The other thing you can do is if you know, like, I'm building this quiz specifically for this module, and I know exactly what module I want it in, you can start at the module and go to quiz and do new quiz. But I recommend building in other places and then coming back to the module and adding it. But yeah, that gives you the option to pull any of those assignments you have. If you just click add item, it'll go to the bottom of the module. You'll notice that it's not published. And then I can take this bar on the left-hand side and I can move it to where I want it to be in the module. So I have that option. And it goes in unpublished. So right now as a student, you still won't see this. And if I decide I don't want it there at all, I can just remove it. So that's how you put it into a module.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's funny because I like to actually go into the modules and then kind of build from there. I guess everyone has their different opinions. But yeah, Kathleen, you're up next.
I'm sorry. I hate to break in. I thought I was next. This is Melanie.
Oh, Melanie, I am sorry. You were right. No.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's been a while. Okay, Melanie, please go. Kathleen will be right to you.
Is this the Melanie who was singing this morning? Because if it is, I think I should have to sing that.
Is. Yeah.
You don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear that. I have a quick question. I'm teaching creative writing this year. Mm-hmm. And I want to know how to grade a group assignment or how to put in a group assignment. For example, if we have a group of students working on one text, is that possible in assignments? How would I do that in an assignment so that there's a group of people working on the same text? And then how would I put the individual grades in for that assignment for each student? And I mean, is that going to automatically happen for me? And then how would I share, or how would they share just their work for that, assignment? And would that, like when I make comments on it, would that go to each individual student? Do you know what I mean? A shared document, but for a small amount of students.
Yeah, those are great questions. And I don't know the answers to all of them, but I do know that we're talking about groups on Friday. So anything I can't answer for you, I think they will be able to answer really well on Friday. Is Billy in here right now?
No, the Billy. But I do want to say, sorry, I had a private text come, so I think I heard the question. If I'm off, I apologize. But you can choose individual students to give assignments to, and then so if you had you could just kind of you could differentiate a lot different ways. So if you only want 3 kids to do one, but all the rest to do the other, you can absolutely do that when you're making assignments or quizzes or things like that.
I think
But
I'm
for
talking,
students working in groups.
For students
Right.
working in groups. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So
okay.
what you'll do there is you'll actually start that in the people tab. And then you'll create group sets, and you can make as many group sets as you want. So like if I click group set, and I know that I would choose the type of assignment they were working in. So maybe this would be like the poetry assignment. I could have poetry here. These are the things that I don't want to like overshare on, because I think they'll do a better job of explaining some of this to you on Friday. You can have students sign up for their own groups, or you can choose that you will split them yourself. You can put them into, 5 groups, or you can just say, you know what, I'll create groups manually. And so now I've got the set for all my poetry groups. And within this, I can have a group that's just called like group 1.
okay, I think I'm talking more about if everyone's doing the same assignment, but they're doing it in groups.
Yeah.
How would they share their final, writing with me? And could they all work on that writing together?
Yeah, and this is where that would start, right? So if this is that writing for that poetry assignment, my first group would be, you want every single kid working together, or like, let's say these 5 kids working together?
I want the whole class set up in groups.
Oh,
like
okay.
Groups of 5, like I'll have 30 kids, and so there'll be 5 kids in each group, so there'll be 6 groups of 5.
Perfect.
And I need to know how to, I guess, and would the assessment be for individuals in the group? I can wait till Friday when it's group day.
Yeah.
I'll wait till Friday. I'd rather wait till Friday, but I appreciate that. That's more like, how do I create that assignment? How do I assess that assignment, and how do I give feedback to individual kids and to groups individually? And so that sounds like it's going to be on Friday's class.
It is, yeah. The first step will be making the groups, and then when you create the assignment, you'll assign it to the group. That's the very short version. I have not played with assessing groups, and I think they'll be able to really answer those questions better for you on Friday.
That's perfect. Finally, and then I'm going to go. I see the link to access the YouTube, but is it offline? Once I get offline, how do I access yesterday's class?
If
I'm not in here with the group chat.
I mean, you will need internet access to get to it at
Right,
some
but after
point.
I leave this live.
Yeah, then you'll be fine. That YouTube link has it. And I know Katie, I believe it was Katie, she posted both sessions from yesterday already.
Where did she post them?
In the YouTube.
I'm showing you right now, here in the modules. It is in the module for this Camp Canvas Live class. If you scroll down to the bottom of each day, here's Monday's videos. Great. Here's Tuesday's videos. Perfect. You'll find ours soon down on Wednesdays.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Sure.
See you.
If I can just jump in 1 second for Melanie's question about groups, just so that she knows, when you set up a group assignment, there is a button that says that you want to grade them as a group, or you want to grade them individually when they're done with their task. So I can't answer what it looks like on the grading side, but there is definitely a button that
there's a button to do that as an option.
Whether you're grading them all together as a unit, or if they're doing it as a unit, but they get graded individually. And I would expect, based on that button, that affects how you're going to see it in your Speedgrader.
Yeah. That is Friday, and that's with Billy and Emily, I believe. So I'm very excited for Friday. I'm going to have my hand raised too. So it'll be good. All right. Thank you. So up next, we have Kathleen. Kathleen, you are ready to go.
Okay. My question is, and this may not really be a question for you, but being a counselor and you're referring to digital citizenship and everybody using Canvas, are you aware of any basic digital citizenship topics that should be covered for all students using Canvas?
Yeah, well, actually, I would probably refer you first to Common Sense Media. They have some amazing lesson plans already kind of built there. You know, and I think they even structure out like specific goals or outcomes based on grade level. And I think that would be a really good place to start. Obviously, we really want to talk about appropriate communication being a huge focus at all levels, and also appropriate collaboration. But even simple things like creating safe and secure passwords are going to be important. And some of us ITCs are working on some of those things now, but I mean, it means so much coming from teachers and counselors that those things are being enforced. So yeah, Common Sense Media is going to be a great resource for you. It's free. You can log into it through Clever to get the full teacher access, and we have access to it that way. But you can also look at it.
The posts were going fast and furious today, especially at certain points. I know Janelle, she got there and had a nice write-up about Common Sense Media and what it could offer. So it was
I also
maybe
posted it in our Canvas course.
You
So
got
now
that
if
there.
you go to the first module in our Canvas course, there's a link there to digital citizenship resources, all the teacher resources, lessons that are categorized by grade level and by topic. And then also a teacher PD that's like a 1 hour online PD you can do with yourself to kind of familiarize yourself with the concept and the resources that Common Sense has provided you. So both those
Perfect. And that's in module 1?
It's at the very, yes, the very first module.
Okay.
It's called Welcome to Camp Canvas. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Where is it?
Got it.
Right now.
Oh, here it is. Hey.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure thing. Thank you. David, you are up. Go ahead and unmute.
Okay, hey, I'm trying to create a module where kids are writing a resume. The first one, I'd like them to submit a document that shows what job they're going after. Then I teach them some more, and then I want them to write the summary and submit that same document back. And I go back and forth with them, and then I teach them some more, and then they do the details, and they give me the final document. Is that doable?
Would that be something you would set with prerequisites, Biz, that we would kind of go through? You'd have the module, and then you have this assignment, but you need to complete this assignment before you can go on to the next one. And you would then use Speedgrader to kind of go, Speedgrader is wonderful. And when you see that, you're going to see all the options that become available to you. It may be that back and forth that you go with the students and seeing their work that they've submitted, and then just commenting, either annotating or just giving kind of text back information and say, this is where you should be focusing. This is what you should have, you need to more focus on this sort of deal, and then go back and forth. And maybe when they complete that, then they go and they've met the prerequisites, they go on to the next assignment. With 5 seconds of thought, maybe that's where you go with that.
Makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
But would they be able to give me that document, thinking of a Word document that would be a template, would they be able to give me a previous assignment as a submission to the new assignment?
I think it would be difficult to have them do a separate draft as a second assignment. What you can do is have them submit the same assignment twice, and you'll still be able to see both submissions. So maybe you could close the assignment for a while and then reopen it and give them the chance to make changes.
That can work. Thank you.
Okay. I like that people are having these questions though. Like, even though I don't have a quick, easy answer, I'm trying to think on my feet. Like, these are really thoughtful, important questions to be asking.
Yeah. Question for a device we have. Do you know, Biz, off the top of your head, how to change a name if you're on a device and you seem to be locked into that name? I thought it was just kind of like double tap on it and it gives the ability to change. I don't use devices too much with Canvas.
Change the name of the...
If your name is displaying in like 920838 and you wanted to change that.
on Zoom?
No. Yes, for Zoom. Sorry.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, you should be able to click on your...
the name itself?
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was on... Oh, I have always been able to change it on the 3 dots on my own picture, but I don't see that option right now. So, question mark. I don't know the answer. Sorry.
Okay, on a laptop, how would you change?
I'm on a laptop. And
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, she's running into, or she or he is running into problems. I know that when you're a Prince William County employee, if you're not already, you can log into Zoom through Office 365, and then it'll have your credentials there, and you can set everything up in Zoom, so it should be able to see all your information.
I'm looking for the option to do it because I've done it. Obviously, according to Prince William County, my last name is not Summers yet, so I know that I've done it. I don't see the easy spot to do it in right now. So I'm sorry. I don't know the answer.
Yeah. We will help figure that out. Don't worry. You won't be stuck as a number for all. Yeah. Brickley, go ahead. If you have a question for us, go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, so I'm still trying to get my head just kind of wrapped around initial setup for an elementary classroom. If I'm teaching multiple subjects, am I trying to put my module set up like on a day-by-day thing? Is it like a course by like science, by like math, language arts? Like the kids initially navigating, I'm just not sure I've got the layout pictured in my head.
So here's what I know is because the courses are going to be generated by the hub. You will have like a homeroom class and then a class for each of your subjects, right? So the best advice I've heard about that is that you would train your students to always log in first to homeroom. And then within homeroom, you'd have buttons to get to the modules for your other courses. And then within those courses, I would say you would probably want to do modules, but well, I've been recommending people do modules by the objective that they're teaching. If your objectives are too big for a module, maybe do them by week 1. And then the way we have like our course headings here, you could say like, here's your text that says day 1, and here are the assignments we're going to do within day 1. Or you could do a whole day as a module for like, this is my day 1 science module. And here are the things I want you to do in science today. But if there are other elementary ITCs who would be better equipped to answer that, I'm totally open to hearing those opinions.
All right. Brickley, did you have any follow-up? Are we good?
You're good. I may am trying to follow up my own like ITC and see how she's thinking about dealing with everybody.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at Canvas, but I'm not amazing at elementary school, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
2 questions that came up. One, I think, is a good one. Are there any plans to close off the Camp Canvas course to participants anytime soon? Is that just going to stay open?
I don't think we have any reason to close it off. I think we want you to have access to these resources forever, I guess. So, no, you should feel comfortable having the ability to come back to this.
And another one that the suggestion's been made before when you're creating questions and there's the title section. I know it's been brought up, and I think it's an excellent suggestion to use your standard, your objective, or whatever it is to focus on. I always forget the name that the CTE group uses. Do students see that, the titles, or is that's for teachers and organizing?
I don't think the students see it. I think it's for your own reference.
Yeah.
I'm going to need a break before we go into the next session.
Yeah, I know.
So.
I think right now I think we're good. We're at 10:30, folks. I think this has been an excellent session. We really do appreciate you all staying with us for the hour and a half.
Yeah, thank you.
And yeah, we got a half hour. We start up again at 11 o'clock for those people.
Let's do it again.
Yay! All right, thank you all. And
all right, thanks everybody for coming.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. All right.